Welcome to Tea and Conversation Live, right here. Tea and Conversation Live. Go ahead on like, share, and subscribe. I am your host, Candy Lowe, and we are here this afternoon because, for one, there's a big debate event on this evening, and we did not want to cross over into that timeline. So, Tea and Conversation this afternoon live, and I am absolutely excited about it right here on all of our social media platforms. Go ahead on and share with a couple of your friends, tag them as well as we jump right into this episode of Tea and Conversation, episode 15, first season. Yeah, I'm excited. And we have with us a young man here, Mr. Billy Christensen, and he is running for Hillsborough County Supervisor of Election here in the great city. And we want to hear what he has going on. For one, um, good afternoon, Billy. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, feeling real good, as I say in my self spirit, and happy that you decided to join me here on Tea and Conversation Live. Billy, tell us a little bit about you. Are you from the Tampa Bay area? Are you from Florida? Give us a little bit of your history, and then we'll jump right in this here thing.
Sure, sure. I grew up in a military family, I guess called Kansas home originally. I joined the military at 18. I enlisted, and I ended up in Florida back in 2001, and Florida's been home ever since. Um, I spent 9 years active duty, and then I picked up a government job working at U.S. Central Command for about a decade, which brought us down here to Tampa. Tampa is our home. We have children here. Our kids are in school. We've basically the entirety of the family has migrated here, much like many people in the area. And we're very thankful to be here. I've long said that Tampa is one of the best kept secrets, or was one of the best kept secrets in the country. And I felt confident saying that, having traveled all over the world. So Tampa is a beautiful place. I really like seeing what's happening with it. And we want to take it the next step. But yeah, I spent the last 6 7 years in running my real estate business, and we're heavily invested in the community, and we want to see it succeed as much as everybody else. So thank you for
Yes,
having us today.
absolutely. What part of Hillsborough County are you in? You know, our county is so large.
Yeah, I know it's tremendously large. Am in I live in Seffner. We're actually the first road into Seffner, but I live right at the where Valrico, Brandon, and Seffner converge, right there on that little corner. So
Mhm.
um, we lay claim to all three areas. But as a real estate professional, I get an opportunity to get out all over the state. I've done business all over the county, and like you said, it's a massive county, and over the last 10 years or so, the amount of change has just been incredible. So we're really excited about now and into the future.
Yes, and what made you decide to run for Hillsborough County Supervisor of Election?
That's a great question. So, I don't know if people are aware or not, but in May of 2023, there was a cyber breach in the Hillsborough County Supervisor of Elections office. 58,000 voters had their personal information stolen, to include their social security and their driver's license numbers. My wife was part of that breach. She was victimized by that breach. So it didn't take long. I'm a former intelligence professional. I have 20 years, intelligence career. It didn't take long to figure out that this wasn't a standard cyber breach. There's an ongoing 16-month FBI investigation. And generally, when there's a cyber attack, or a company or any organization is hit with a cyber attack, you get notified, which everybody was, but you also get a service saying, if you were compromised, here's who you can reach out to address any of these issues. That hasn't happened. In fact, there hasn't been a single update since the initial notification. And Mr. Latimer, the current supervisor, he's hiding behind this FBI investigation, and I argue that you owe the people an update. Should I be the supervisor, I would be up the FBI's behind, demanding an update for the people. But as a former intelligence professional, I can tell you one of two things. is going on in that office, if the FBI is involved to the extent that they are. It's certainly not a routine cyber hack. It means that there's either a foreign element into their investigation or an organized crime element to their investigation, or perhaps both. But it's not a routine cyber hack. It's the first and only ever validated cyber hack in Florida elections history. And there's really not a lot out there about it, and the community is owed an update. So that was the first kind of red flag where we're like, what's going on in our elections office? And this is on the heels of, all the controversy of 2020. So then we started, just asking a few more questions, and come to find out, did you know that he took an unaccountable $2.9 million grant that originated from Mark Zuckerberg? And as everybody's aware, Mark Zuckerberg just came out and essentially apologized about putting that money into play into the country, because he acknowledged that that money was used nefariously to influence elections. And Mr. Latimer, of all the supervisors in the state, he took the most money of any supervisor. There was another county that accepted more funds, but as an individual supervisor, he accepted the most. And where most people returned the money after it was kind of determined this was not a good thing, he has not returned any, and in fact will not specify how that money was spent. And that's pretty egregious, and the state agrees, because they had to make a new law, and they did following the 2020 election. There's a series of election integrity laws that were implemented at behest of both parties, one of which is that no third-party funding will be implemented into our election process. And I think that's a great thing. I mean, nobody wants the other side injecting influential money to sway an outcome one way or the other in whatever shape or form. So I think ultimately there's a good result, and our elections are in a better place because of it. But that's the individual, we're starting to paint a picture of who's conducting our elections. And Mr. Latimer's been there for 12 years. He's never had a challenger. And if you Google his name, one of the first things that comes up is when he first initiated his run in 2012, he shook down his employees for political or campaign donations. And the one individual that didn't donate to his campaign, he fired him. And this is before he got elected. And he's kind of brought that same mentality over the last decade. And there's a couple more, issues that we've stumbled across. And quite frankly, at this point, it's overwhelmingly obvious that we need some fresh leadership in that office. And we're in a good position as a family, in my spot in my career, in our lives, where we have something that we feel very strongly that we can do some good for everyone. So that's kind of why we got involved.
So what was the money that was received by Zuckerberg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what was that money? What was the money for?
Well, the money initially was to this was during COVID, and the money was seemingly to help get out the vote, right? And that's seemingly a good thing. The contention is that Mr. Latimer, and this is perhaps one of the reasons why he won't be forthcoming about how the money was spent, was that money spent equitably across the community, or was it targeted into certain areas? And again, that goes back to the inherent issues of injecting third-party funding. There's no accountability of how that money is spent. There's no oversight of it. And it's just whether it was spent, for good of one community versus another is irrelevant. The fact that it's influencing one community over the other is not a good thing. So again, I think the state's in a good place now that will no longer happen. It's unfortunate that we had to go through that, but these are the growing pains that we go through as a community as we evolve. It's an unfortunate thing that our supervisor here in Hillsborough County is probably the most egregious offender of it. There were 11 people in the state that took this money. And again, I go back to almost everybody gave a big chunk of the money back. We're the only folks that haven't given any of it back. So it's really a bad look. And you got Mr. Zuckerberg coming out himself and saying, hey, I shouldn't have done this. And, if you ask Mr. Latimer, he'll tell you it's money well spent. And again, it's just, there's a character issue in the office right now. And it's just not somebody that any of us need to have running our elections. There's a lot of conjecture. There's a lot of speculation, and it shouldn't be that way. And frankly, I point to Mr. Latimer in that sense. If there's all this conjecture and speculation, what are we doing to make sure that it's not happening? So we need to get to a place where transparency is the standard, and where people trust the outcomes of our elections. And I think that just comes through being, having an open dialogue with your community, having that transparency so they have access, so they can see what's going on in their election process, and so that everybody believes that everybody wants their community's voices to be heard. Did you know in 2020, 3% of the votes cast were counted as blank? There were 21,884 blank ballots cast. And it's unfortunate because we can't get a definitive definition of what a blank ballot is, although it's immeasurable on the final report. And what it means is, I contend, is that you as a voter potentially walked in to cast your vote, and as you put it into the machine, you thought it was counted, but the machine counted it as blank. And we know it did because there were 21,000 of them. And at the time, we can't go back and audit those because at the time there was no requirement. If it was a blank ballot, it just got thrown away. There was no audit trail for it. Both parties sued the state after 2020 to maintain an image of all blank ballots. So that 3% of disenfranchised voters votes, and we don't know where those votes were because we can't audit it. But that 3%, because of the work of both parties, dropped to 0.0009%. So again, another win for the community, because our elections are now administratively more secure. But it's something that we had, another growing pain that we had to go through, and potentially unnecessarily. And it wasn't anything. These changes were not of Mr. Latimer's doing. This was the parties getting after it throughout the state and saying, all right, there's some issues here, and we need to address that. Mr. Latimer has no interest in securing our elections, or, in fact, we had a debate at Tiger Bay last week, and we introduced our concept. I believe in unity in our communities, especially when it relates to our elections. There's nothing more community than our elections. It's the one unifying element of our society. And it's something that 93% of people want: safe and secure elections. This is one thing we can all agree on. And, unfortunately, this office that we have is a partisan office. It shouldn't be. It should probably be a paid position. But the way the system is, we have to go through this election process to elect a partisan candidate. And it's very difficult to convey to the community that we need an objective administrator. We have to see past parties, and we need to hire a good administrator for this process because it affects everyone's voice. And, that's what we bring. But the biggest element of that is through a voter education program. There is a serious lack of a voter education program. And, I'm not an educator by trade. I'm an intelligence professional. I like to go find the best people out there. So we brought on, obviously we're running under the Republican ticket, but we brought on a registered Democrat, the senior administrator for the Hillsborough County School District, Miss Jennifer Sperano-Wisegow, to help us establish this voter education program and to help us hopefully get it implemented into the school system. Because right now, our SOE office goes in and sure, they get the kids pre-registered to vote, but nobody really understands what it means. We had a 20% turnout in our last primary. That's a decrease from 30%. So, that tells you that the community is not participating. They may perhaps not understand. Maybe there's not enough access. We don't know, but there's a significant drop in participation, and that's not a good sign. And I think a massive, robust voter education program starting at the teenage level all the way up to the most seasoned voters will give us measurables and metrics that we can take to town halls with the community and say, hey, here's where we're failing or succeeding. What do you guys think? How can we improve? These things aren't happening right now in our elections office. These things should be standard. And, all you need to do is just kind of like look behind the door to figure out that it's not happening. And, all right, we have time. We can do this. We bring an objective approach to it, and we hope that the community agrees with us.
Mm-hmm. And let me say, when you mentioned about the low voters turnout, I have to say that was actually across the state, across the country. Just people had a lot of apathy, which they do have during the primary election. I'm sure that all the numbers will be high, during the general election. What are some of the things that um, uh, you have to bring to this office, and some of the things that you will change? How will you be an outreach for the community in reference to education and educating the voters to get out to vote, and all the other educational components that I have seen over the years?
Right. That's a great question. And at my at U.S. Central Command, it's a staff of 5,000 people. I was a senior government employee. I managed $3.5 billion of urgent warfighter needs money for the government. The Supervisor of Elections budget fluctuates around $15 million a year. It's a very small office and program, and it should not have the issues that it has. So we bring over a decade of senior level administrative experience at a level 10 times of what we're experiencing here. And we're happy to do it because it's very clear that it needs to happen. I have a master's degree in international relations. Like I said, I have a 20-year intelligence career, and I'm a very proud veteran. I'm also a husband and a father, and I think that brings a tremendous amount of patience that I did not always appreciate as a young man. So I'm very, very confident in our leadership and our ability to serve the community objectively. And that's the key thing, is that we will be objective. Now, and I think we show that in our actions. Again, I point back to our team is comprised of people from throughout the community. And one of the things that we intend to do, and we're going to implement immediately, is host quarterly town halls, with the different civic associations or different organizations. And hopefully over our first 4-year tenure, we'll establish a pattern that becomes the standard for the community. And that outreach will, dovetail into our voter education. But the big thing is transparency leads to confidence, right? And I believe strongly that public accountability or public transparency brings natural accountability. Is the best form of management. So the more that we can make public, the more access we can give to the people, I think the better the process will be. Not everybody agrees with that, but I actually think the more people have familiarization with their election process, the more confident they will be in the outcome. And this is not a short battle per se. This is something that's going to take time. And if we can start again with an effective voter education program at the teenage years, and it's something that has a measurable that says this is the importance of your local elections or your primaries, right? And why not to be apathetic to what's going on? Because especially in your local elections, they directly affect your ability to buy a home, or the roads that go through your community, or your schools, right? Those are the people that make those decisions for you. So you probably should be more involved than say the larger general election issues that we all participate in naturally. And then we build on that over time. And then, that's how we become the gold standard, quite frankly. And one thing I can tell you what I won't bring, and this is the objectivity. I'm going to hold up a pin right here. I don't know if you can see it or not, but everybody should be familiar with this pin. And again, it's something that you get, everybody's handed when they go to vote. If you go to a voting station, and on this pin has Craig Latimer's name on it. And on every single item throughout the county has Craig Latimer's name on it. On billboards across the county, on every vehicle, on every shirt, through every building, every pin. Just these pins alone. This is your taxpayer money, all right? This is your and I's money. In the last year and a half, he's spent $350,000 just on these pins so that he can have his name on here. Now, when he loses this race, we have to toss these out, and we have to rebuy pins that can easily just say Supervisor of Elections. I want to make a very, very key point here. His entire credibility, and he spends millions of your taxpayer dollar writing another statement, recipient of the Governor Sterling Award. He's very, very proud of that award. I want to be very clear. That award is not rewarded to him by the governor. That award is given to you through you solicit that award through a nonprofit organization. You pay money, and Mr. Latimer spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in consultants and travel fees and application fees to solicit this award, and has spent the last decade spending millions of your and my tax dollars advertising this award and making everybody believe that it was, you know, awarded by the governor, and it's not. It's something that you have to go solicit. And the bigger issue beyond the wasteful spending to the tunes of millions is how do we as the voter benefit from this award in the last 10 years? Do you think he would win that award today with the cyber hack? And don't forget that the website crashed at the end of the primary voting session, right as voting ending, and the results were supposed to be posted. The election site crashed, our website crashed. It's the second time in a row, and we don't have a real explanation as to why. So, you know, do you think he would have won that award now, a decade later? Probably not. So why are we wasting millions of our taxpayer dollars promoting something that's irrelevant to the voter? That money could be used for voter education. It could be used for securing our voting process. It could be used to opening more voting locations. It could be used to providing transportation. I mean, there's a lot better uses of that taxpayer money other than the self-promotion of an individual that has not really spent any of his campaign money because he's been busy spending all of our taxpayer money self-promoting. I joke, I say, if you don't know who Craig Latimer is, just walk outside and pick up a pen, his name will be on it. Or look up at a billboard, it'll say register to vote, trusted elections, Craig Latimer. Nobody trusts the elections right now, Mr. Latimer. If they did, I wouldn't be here. So my message to the community, every community, is, you know, I bring objectivity. You know, I enlisted in the military. I had to earn everything I have. You know, the military provided my GI Bill, and I used that to get my bachelor's and my master's degree. And I leveraged my experience to get a government job, and I'm very proud of my work. I have never been given anything. My wife is a naturalized citizen from Colombia. She too has earned everything that she's had. It's never been easy. And we empathize with everyone that's ever had to earn something. So we bring that pride. This is our home. We're very proud of what we have. I have a business here. My family's here. We want what everybody wants. And I'm just completely disheartened that, you know, Mr. Latimer, who is a long-standing citizen of this county, and it truly has served as a law enforcement officer, has just lost sight of what's important over this last decade. And that's what the service to the people really means. And unfortunately, he's made it more about himself, and it's muddied the integrity of our local elections. We've become kind of a you know, an in-house embarrassment with the state. And I just want to clean it up. And hopefully, you know, we don't have these discussions about election integrity anymore. It's absolute nonsense that we're in this situation that we're in.
Billy, are you hearing much about in the community, much about some of those issues that you're bringing up?
The big concerns that I'm hearing are, should I win, will I change anything regarding voting access? And I, you know, and I have no problem giving where credit is due. And I believe in Hillsborough County, we have a tremendous voting apparatus in place to allow access. And the last thing, I want to increase it, quite frankly. I think we're in a good spot, but I think we can even do more. The other thing too is regards like, am I going to limit early voting? I don't set that standard necessarily. There's a board and some other regulations that set that. But, you know, again, I was an overseas voter. I've always been moving around. Access is always a challenge. So I'm all for as much access as possible. That's one of the biggest things I hear. We don't have any intention of reducing it. In fact, we want to increase it. The other thing I hear is, I'm shocked at how many people bring up the pen. That's why I hold it up. Everybody knows these pens. So
well, let me say now, in Hillsborough County, that's nothing new. So I don't know if you've heard that before.
Well, the difference between here's the difference with Mr. Latimer and everybody else. You know, having your name on something is not an issue per se. It's to the extent in which he's doing it. It's clearly become self-promotion. But most importantly, again, this is the person who's supposed to be an objective administrator of our elections. I contend, and when I'm elected, you'll never hear me endorse a candidate, and you'll never hear me give a public opinion on anything, because it immediately taints the credibility of it, because automatically half of the people are going to assume you're advocating for an outcome, right? It's inherent human nature to believe that. And we don't have that from Mr. Latimer. And he doubles down when he goes to the extreme of self-promotion that he does. But most importantly is he is literally in violation of law come election time. You are not allowed to solicit within 150 feet as a candidate in a voting station. And his name is on every pin. It's on the ballot. It's on every sign, every parking sign. It's just everywhere unnecessarily. And people have taken notice. And it's, what value does that bring? But there is no value, but it's clear electioneering. And that needs to stop. If you can't win the election based on your efforts and your credentials and what you've done over the last decade, and you have to effectively use taxpayer money to promote your name, then you're probably not in a good spot to be our next supervisor of elections. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that pin thing is nothing new. Buddy had his name on all of the pins. I know there was an uproar about that, but his name was on the pins, and we have.
Is it okay? Do you think it's okay to is $350,000 in the last year and a half to put your name on a pin? Does that bring any value to the voter? You know what I could have done?
It doesn't bring any.
Right.
No, it doesn't bring any value to the voter, but I do see our sheriff, our clerk of court, and other people. So I don't want to get into the woods with the pen thing, because that has definitely been something that I've seen. I'm born and raised in Tampa, so that is something that I have seen for quite some time. I know you have some really good endorsements. Could you let us know who those endorsements are?
Absolutely. So I'm most proud of, like I said, I have a real estate business here in the area. The realtors endorsements, the largest PAC in the area. They represent a very diverse group of people throughout there. I mean, not just Hillsborough, but it spans multi counties. And as of last week, they've endorsed us, and I'm very, very humbled by that, and I'm very, very prideful of that. Generally, the realtors PAC endorses the incumbent, and for them to reevaluate this race really signifies the importance of the issues that we're talking about. Securing our elections, making them transparent, educated voters. These are very, very important issues for the sake of all of us, and that is a very powerful endorsement, and we're very, very thankful for it. We also recently had Mr. State Representative Mr. Bernie Jauch's endorsement, and as everybody knows, he's a statewide election integrity advocate. And again, that's another one that I put above most because of what it represents. He's a local. He is a huge election integrity advocate, and he doesn't put his name behind anyone that is not going to do what's right for the community. So we have some pretty powerful endorsements, and more coming. And Miss Candy, we hope that we get your endorsement, quite frankly. So we'll work on that. But I think as more people engage with us, they understand that we truly are that objectivity that's necessary in this role, and we'll get there. I think everybody will be satisfied.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Tea and Conversation. Have you been to Tea and Conversation yet?
I have not, but I'd love to come.
Okay. Well, it's every second and fourth Saturday.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I said, is that an invite?
Absolutely. I very, very seldom, because Tea and Conversation been going on for 19 years. So I very seldom reach out to candidates anymore about it. But it's every second and fourth Saturday, and it's at Al's Finger Licking Good Soul Food. That's 2302 East 7th Avenue, and it's from 10 a.m. to noon. And everyone's welcome. 19 years solid in the Tampa Bay
Wow.
area.
I used to live in Ybor as a single
Okay,
man.
I
I
love
that
Eagle.
Yeah, as a single, I got to live all over the area. I lived in Ybor. I got to live off of Columbus on the river. Obviously out here in
Yes.
the Brandon area. So I've been around.
Okay. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. And we would love to have you. It's a very
Thank you.
diverse community that we have at Tea and Conversation. All are welcome there. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, all from day one at Tea and Conversation.
Awesome.
Yep. Yep.
We'll see you there.
Anything else you want to add to? Yeah, hot tea. I tell you,
Yeah,
it gets
awesome.
hot.
Well, look,
Yes, it gets.
just to close out, you again for having us, and I want to your audience, I just want to convey that we would appreciate the opportunity to represent this community on these elections. We can do much better, and I think that you will be very, very pleased with what you get, and that we are an open book. And if you guys need anything whatsoever, Miss Candy has my phone number. We would love to come speak to anyone and discuss the issues. So, and thank you again for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. And we've been talking back and forth for a few weeks now and trying to get connected, and we finally did. Uh, you are listening to Tea and Conversation Live. I am your host, Candy Lowe, and we had on with us today Mr. Billy Christensen. He's a candidate for Hillsborough County School Board, and we all know election is right around the corner. The early voting starts when, Billy?
Vote by mail ballots go out October 3rd, and then early voting starts October 20, October, I
21st?
think it's the 27th or the 17th. But the vote by mail ballots go out October 3rd. So if you have your vote by mail ballot coming in, most people are voting by mail now.
Yeah.
It's coming out this week, and just make sure you drop it. I would recommend dropping it off directly in the ballot box, not through the post office, but that's entirely up to you. You run the risk. But if you vote by mail ballot, if you requested one, you should be looking for it. October 7th is the last day to register to vote. So make sure if you haven't registered to get out and vote. You got to vote in this election. I mean, everybody knows it. Get your voice out right now. So you got until October 7th to get that done.
Absolutely, absolutely. And election day is November 5th, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And we encouraging everybody, do not wait. I say this all the time. I remember a few years back on election day, we had a storm.
That's right.
And a lot of people were not able to get out on election day. Hurricane season does not end until November 31st. So we don't want to wait till election day. Everyone likes the hype of election day. They want to wait and go on election day. Please don't wait. Uh, do vote by mail, go early and get it done. We know we have souls to the polls on the Sunday before the election as well. So make sure you get out and vote, get your voice heard, and I'm sure it's going to be voters throughout our state, our city, our country in record numbers. Again, thank you so much for listening in to Tea and Conversation.